Hello and welcome to Jason May Draw. Today I'm going to show you how to take this background from episode 5 of Jason May Draw Clubhouse and make it look like this. If you enjoy any of the content created here, I encourage you to like, subscribe, and share your favorite videos. If you have any questions about the process, please comment down below. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my flats that I created and I am going to start adding some shadows to the purple areas with a special brush that I created. I'll speed some things up along the process as I go here so that you guys don't get too bored. It is a lengthy process, but we don't need to have you watch every single second of it. If you do want to learn how to flat comics, you can check out my How to Flat Comics tutorial. It will show you how to lay the flat colors out before you do shading, which is what I'm doing right now. Let's speed this up a little bit and get through. I can see that there's some spots that I did not flat fully. There are some strange colors, but we can take care of that in a bit. You can probably see as I speed through this, I am just selecting areas and going to a different layer and adding in some shadows up against the walls and the floor. I know that I want this control panel to be a bit of a centerpiece, so I'm just going to lay out some color here to draw the eye to the center. It's sort of a workstation where the villain can sort of manipulate this globulous material into whatever type of shape he wants. The viewers in the Jason May Draw Clubhouse episode 5 suggested that I put a teddy bear in there with a honey pot tattoo. Next, we will speed through adding some highlights to various areas. I knew that I would like to have some bright glowing coming from these lights up top as they cast down onto our features down below. After adding some of those shadows in the background, I move on to adding some shadows to some of my set pieces. It helps define and build up some depth in a lot of these parts. You can see it really makes things start to pop out, gives some things some believability, gives some dimension and some depth to various parts of the set. Now we'll just plow through some of these shadows and move on from there. Working on the console here to give a little bit of depth, show that the bear is giving some light off and casting a shadow off of that circle. The fish in the underground area needs some shading to make it look a little bit more believable and a little deeper. In a minute, I will go in here and I will select the background and put a nice gradient in to give the water sort of a feel of depth. Things are looking pretty good, I think. I keep trying to save this, but I'm having some issues with it. This is where I usually sit and I look around and decide what needs to be done next. I'm going to go ahead and add an extra layer, and I'm going to make it entirely black. After I do that, I'm going to choose the hue blend mode, which will show me my piece in black and white and give me an idea of what the values are. And I'll be making a video on values and explaining what that is. but I can see by looking at it, it's a little gray, and there's definitely some dark areas that I'd like to pop and some lighter areas that I'd like to bring out, and I'll probably do that a little bit later with an adjustment mask, and you will see how that's done as well. So let's get zooming along here again and add some stuff in. All right, let's fire through adding some highlights to some of the glassy and shiny surfaces here. You'll notice that I kind of bounce around between working on shadows and highlights. It's something that I learned in art school. You work a piece as a whole. It makes things a lot easier. It helps you work on the entire composition at the same time, and bouncing back and forth really just builds your image as a whole versus working on one little tiny spot and then the next tiny spot. And that's not to say that there aren't people who do that and are very successful, but in terms of classical training, this tends to be the best way for myself and many other people. I really enjoyed working on the Platypus wife's sort of back to tank over here. I built up the highlights quite a bit in a little while, but I really wanted a sense of underlighting. I wanted it to be kind of moody and interesting so that the reader will look at this and wonder what the story is behind it, although there is no narrative for it yet. I knew during the episode of Jason May Draw Clubhouse that I wanted to put some sort of pattern on the floor. I was messing around with perspective and tiles and things like that, but then I decided I would probably get a little more abstract with it and just make it look a little bit more interesting by adding some geometric shapes. And I'll speed through this so you can see what happens next. You'll see in a second that I don't love this red, and there's something that I do about it. I just changed some hues and tones and some opacity. Something I'll probably show you at a later date in another video. If you watch all my videos, you'll probably learn some of these techniques. I also decided that the background needed to be a little bit more separated from the foreground in terms of color palette. So yellow is a great color to pop in there when you're working with purple because it's its complementary color. It's across from purple on the color wheel. But I didn't want it to be too crazy, so I brought that opacity down just a little bit, just so I get a touch of yellow, just to knock it back a tiny bit. Looks good through my grayscale. It'll look better shortly. And as I get to this point in my coloring, I usually want to get to the more exciting bits and pieces like glows and different lighting sources, doing some interesting or moody type of things. I knew that I would have a blast on the tank with the platypus in it, and I also knew that I would have a lot of fun making the teddy bear glowing in the center because it's more of a holographic, like blobbish sort of concept there in the center. As I mess up a little bit, you can see that little green in the upper right hand corner. That's no problem, that'll get erased in a minute. I could see that I didn't love the color on that teddy bear, so I brightened it up a smidge. Things are looking pretty good as a whole. I'm looking around, I see that I want some glows on some of the control panels and strange devices in the weaponry cabinet. Still keeping an eye on this little thing that wasn't colored appropriately, so we'll do that real quick. For those of you who don't know, I do have this on high speed. This is not how quickly I work. I'm adjusting some of the line art. I'm darkening it up a little bit. It was a little too light, making things look a little murky. The center console needed a little extra light bouncing from that teddy bear hologram, and that would probably hit these back poles and a few other areas. So we'll clean that up a little bit and add some glows and some light. I did want this banister to light up on this staircase. I'm not sure how well that came across. That'll be fixed later, but I'm not spending a ton of time on this. This is really for my folks from the Jason May Draw Clubhouse to come and check out how this was done, because they will see the finished product on episode 6 next week. They will not get to watch me color this whole thing, but I guess actually they will. If they come back and check this out, they'll see the full color version and how I did it. So after looking at this a few times in black and white, I realized that I wanted some areas to be darker so that my light seemed a little bit more intense. So I decided to add an adjustment layer for brightness and darkened it up and used its layer mask to knock out the areas that I wanted to stay bright. I think it's doing a pretty good job of giving us a nice little moody layer look. It's come along nicely. Some things needed to be feathered out a little bit with a little bit of a gentler brush. I got in there pretty dirty at first. This certainly can come a lot further, but this is not a project that I am having published. It's mostly a project for fun, for you guys to check out and learn from, for us to create together in the Jason May Clubhouse. We've been creating a lot of stuff together, which I think is pretty awesome. I'm going to add some glows to these posts. They'll probably ricochet off and hit a few other things. We'll take care of that. Here come a few more green highlights. And then I think I'll take the time to redraw Chris Gugliotti's character, the Platypus, in the cybernetic outfit, and pop it in here, and with the use of movie magic, he will pop in right now. And I think that looks pretty cool. What do you guys think? Tell me in the comments below. Thank you again for taking your time to spend this with me and create some artwork. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe. Most importantly, please share this with your friends. Share it on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is you happen to be using. And let them know that this is happening and that can come here and they can learn from this. I will see you next week, and maybe I'll see you at the next Jason May Draw Clubhouse, where you will comment and chime in and have an effect on something like this supervillain secret lair. Take care.